Thank you. Isn't that what we all need to know? I don't need to preach to you about how completely, entirely, wholly debilitating leprosy was 2,000 years ago when Jesus walked this earth. About how leprosy, the once incurable disease, said that you are not beautiful. About how leprosy, the maiming, disfiguring disease, said that you didn't belong in your own skin. About how leprosy, the colony isolating disease, said that you were all alone. About how leprosy, the family destroying disease, said that you're never going to find love again. I don't need to preach to you about all that. Because if we do an honest evaluation of our lives, at some point or time in our lives, we have felt that we are not beautiful. We have felt that we do not belong. We have felt alone. We have felt that we're never going to find love again. I don't need to preach to you about all of the parallels there are for us today, about how so many of the little words have cut you off from the very foundational things you know you have to do. About how so many little lies have followed you all of your life and divided you from who you know yourself to be. About how you will see that God has been there the whole time. And you know it. I don't need to preach to you about how it is because of all of that that you are running and hiding. About how there's never been a moment, a single solitary split second of your life that you were not perfectly loved. About how even when you barely believed it, about how even when your eyes couldn't see it, about how every single moment you have been perfectly loved. I don't need to preach to you about how we are more like the 9 lepers who are only healed. About how, like the 9 lepers, we are in the hands of the infinite. About how, like the 9 lepers, the wounds of the world became his. About how, like the 9 lepers, we see the kindness that God has for us. about how, like the 9 lepers, God has always been drawing us in. I don't need to preach to you about how the least likely of the 10 lepers, because Samaritans were impure outcasts to the religious deities, the religious beliefs of the day, was the one who ran back to give thanks. And that faith that he showed, that certainty for something that he couldn't see and feel and touch, is what made him whole. About how that grateful faith can make us whole too. About how God has opened so many doors to show us how to be whole. About how God has shown us so many miracles to help us be whole. About how God has followed us all of our lives to make us whole. About how we'll see that wholeness in God has been there the whole time. All you have to do is accept it. And how, like the refrain of a song, we have to accept it again and again and again. I don't need to preach to you about how we're all broken and scattered. About how you are not a problem. You are not a mistake. You don't need fixing or solving. About how in the arms of God's grace, you are perfectly human. About how made from dust, you got a heart that is broken and scattered, yet perfectly loved. I don't need to preach to you this morning. I need simply to take a deep, slow breath. Share these lyrics with you and allow you to prayerfully meditate on what being perfectly loved has to do with the 9 who received healing and the 1 who received wholeness. So close your eyes if you're comfortable. Have an upright posture, nothing crossed, so that God's Spirit can flow through all of you. And listen for what Spirit says to you. Who said you weren't beautiful? And that you didn't belong in your own skin? Who said that you were all alone? and you're never gonna find love again. So many little words, so many little lies. That have followed you all of your life. Looking for the truth. Look into your eyes. And you'll see it's been there the whole time. Even when you're running. Even when you're hiding. Never been a moment that you were not perfectly loved. When you barely believed it, when your eyes couldn't see it, every single moment, you've always been perfectly loved. In the hands of the infinite, as the wounds of the world became his. See the kindness heaven has for you and how he's always been drawing you in. So many open doors. So many miracles that have followed you all your life. Looking for the truth. Look into your eyes, and you'll see it's been there the whole time. You're not a problem. You're not a mistake. Don't need fixing or solving. In the arms of his grace. You're perfectly human. Made from the dust. You've got a heart broken and scattered, yet perfectly loved. Friends, here's how it ends. Even when you're running, even when you're hiding, never been a moment that you were not perfectly loved. When you barely believed it, when your eyes couldn't see it, every single moment, you've always been perfectly loved. You've always been perfectly loved. Amen. Amen.